Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to NAUI's Dive Team Report. I'm your host, Greg Martin. You know, back in my college days, I was not fortunate enough to have any kind of aquatic or marine programs available to me back at Wichita State University in the middle of Kansas. The summer before I attended WSU, I wound up getting my Basic Scuba certification. Now, if you happen to have read through the latest NAUI Sources magazine, you probably saw an article about the scuba program at Cal State Monterey Bay. Frank Degnan is the diving safety officer with the program and joins us on this week's podcast. Frank, thanks for being here.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So why wouldn't Wichita State University have a scuba program and Cal State Monterey does?
Well, you know, I tell you, that's a really good question. I can remember when I first got here, we had one beginning scuba section. We managed to build it up to two sections of beginning scuba, and then one of our students who had completed the class was getting ready to transfer to University of Virginia. And he did a little online research, got back to me and said, Frank, University of Virginia is in the mountains of Northern Virginia, and they have a much more extensive scuba program than Cal State Monterey Bay. What's up with that? So I don't know why Wichita State wouldn't. I assume you must have water near there.
I'm sure there was water someplace. I don't know where it was at, but I know there was.
So, you know, I guess they just, probably wasn't near and dear to their heart like it is to us here in Monterey.
Probably not. Now, I was reading through the article again this morning, and you talk an awful lot about the fact that you guys are a NAUI program, and you make some pretty harsh statements about NAUI being, a pretty good program, huh?
Well, I tell you what, I got certified NAUI originally when I was going through my entry-level scuba, and that was just because there was a guy in the office where I was working during the day, and he was a NAUI instructor. So it started out as NAUI by default because I knew Paul and liked Paul and figured I don't need to do any more research. I'm taking scuba with a guy that I know and trust. And then as I got farther and farther along and learned a little bit more about the various agencies, I felt better and better about NAUI. And ultimately, for a little while, I actually ran the scuba programs at San Jose State University, about an hour north of here. And I was working with a shop in San Jose that had been a NAUI shop, was going to shift over to PADI. And so I went through a PADI crossover to find out what PADI was all about. And I just realized that, at the most basic level, yes, scuba is scuba and good instruction is good instruction. But ultimately, my belief is, and was at the time, that NAUI offers instructors the opportunity to provide a much higher level of training than some of the other organizations. And given that we were working with a college population, folks who are used to studying and working, it just seemed that NAUI allowed me to give them what they deserved rather than to take it down to the lowest common denominator. So even though I've been contacted by other agencies over the years saying, hey, how'd you like to, switch your program over to our certification agency? The answer's always been no. I'm really happy where we are.
And that talks a little bit about the fact that the flexibility of the NAUI program, because most scuba courses, as you well know, run 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on how fast. Nowadays, with online, you can get through them a little faster if you don't do classrooms. But you turn around and translate those into full semesters, right?
Right. So what we do, and I have to say, I think I mentioned it in the article, I definitely live in the Ivory Tower because we're here at Cal State Monterey Bay, so we have outstanding dive sites, 10, 15, 20 minutes from campus. Generally, what we will do is in a 16-week semester, we'll spend 8 to 10 weeks in some combination of, pool, confined water training, and academics. So we get the students in for a 4-hour block, and we hit the academics and we hit the pool work. And then the last 6 to 8 weeks, we just go diving. And that's really, really nice because, again, talking to some of the other agencies, they want you to provide, their minimum and their maximum are essentially the same thing, as opposed to now he's saying, hey, here's the minimum that you have to meet in terms of the certification requirements. But if your students want more and can handle more and you're in a position to give them more, do it. And from my perspective, from a training and education point of view, that's definitely the system within which I want to operate.
Now, you mentioned the ivory tower both in the article and just a minute ago, and I want to dive
Hmm.
into that just a little bit if you don't mind the pun. You guys have probably the worst possible situation, I think, as far as your pool sessions and classrooms. How do you guys do it with having the pool and the classrooms and everything right there?
Well, we're definitely spoiled. I got to tell you, I remember when I first started teaching, I taught through a recreation department in Menlo Park, California. And after I fought hard enough, I got them to let me do my lectures in the pump house. So this is, this is a deluxe setup. But what's really nice is we've got the dive locker right here. We can outfit over 50 divers. So we're a couple steps from the water to the classroom. We're a couple steps from the dive locker to the water. And it's a really sweet setup. And then again, because we're so close to the ocean, what we can do is we just tell the kids, look, be at the dive locker 6:45 in the morning. I don't care how early it is, be here. We get out, we can get one, sometimes two dives in for the entire class, get back, get everything put away, and get them back on the main campus in time for the next class. So part of the irony of this whole thing is when we're training our dive masters, we have to tell them, look, you guys need to go out and at least shadow some dive masters from the dive shops. You need to go sit on the beach on a weekend when everyone else is diving and see what the real world looks like. Because our training staff, a lot of them, the kids, all their scuba exposure and experience has been within our program. And when they go out and start doing diving with some of the folks who don't have the same level of training at entry level at scuba diver certification, one of the things we constantly hear is, Frank, you'll never believe what I saw. Yeah, I will. Been there, done that. So for us, the flip side is saying, listen, everybody, it's not like this. And even our students that you think are the weakest, they're students who are 19, 18, 20 years old, have had 16 weeks of training, and they're pretty good compared to a lot of the diving public who's had, a weekend in a pool and a weekend at a really protected dive site. So, we suffer along as best we can.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about there's some ancillary kind of programming that the school offers as far as marine sciences and so forth, isn't there?
Right. Well, what's actually happening with us right now, we have 3 levels of instruction through our kinesiology department, and those are activity classes where there is a 1-unit activity and a 1-unit academic component. And some of the students coming through, that's basically what they're looking for. They're looking for recreational scuba. But here at Cal State Monterey Bay, there's a big emphasis on marine science, and the marine science department is really starting to grow. So a lot of the students, when they come in from day one, that's a long-term goal. And what's really nice for our program, and I think it's going to really help us continue to grow and develop, is that the way the marine science department looks at it is you come in as a freshman, you're attracted by Monterey Bay, and then you got to spend 2 years doing your GE requirements, which aren't necessarily the most thrilling. So we really use scuba as a hook. Try to get those budding marine scientists involved in scuba as soon as they walk onto the campus. They go through the kinesiology activity classes, which takes them up through scuba diver, advanced scuba diver, rescue diver, and master diver. Then we put them through our scientific diving course, and that keeps them engaged in the ocean and thinking about what's going on in the marine environment for the first couple of years. And by then, they're getting ready to go into their upper level courses. They're trained and ready to go as marine scientists, and hopefully they can come up with their own projects and get out in the water. And what's nice for us is because we've got the dive locker, if it's a legit project approved by a faculty member, and as long as their diving protocols are safe and within our campus diving manual standards, we can provide them all the gear they need from the locker. So whereas in a lot of cases for college kids, expense is the difficult part of continuing to dive while they're here, if they're engaged in that science aspect, then we can make all the gear available to them. And in fact, I just got back from a weekend up on the North Coast because we have another science class a little bit farther along, which is basically just field work. We'll spend a weekend on the North Coast. We'll spend a couple of weekends in Central California. We'll go down to San Diego for a long weekend at the beginning of the Thanksgiving break. They spend the whole weekend just diving, monitoring marine life. There's specific protocols we follow. And they're actually at the undergraduate level engaged in developing a long-term data set or database for monitoring the marine life here in California, and that gets turned over to the state for setting policy.
Nice. Nice. Now you also
Yeah,
do
it's
you
great.
you also do some ITCs as well, right?
We do. And again, I know that I use this phrase a lot, but talk about the ivory tower. What happens is if you go through all those activity classes and you've spent at least 2 semesters showing up, helping on a regular basis, then we will help you become a dive master. Now, that's not a class for credit. It's just time that the students put in and the staff puts in outside. We meet the NAUI standards. And then the folks who are the most enthusiastic and we think have shown the most aptitude, we will offer an instructor training course. Generally speaking, we only offer it for our students and occasionally some locals, because the way we do it is we say, look, here's the minimum we have to do. Here's the start date. We're done when we're done. And so if we get along and we think maybe these students aren't quite as far along as we had initially believed, or maybe there's a lot more we can do because of their background or their aptitude or their enthusiasm. So our schedules aren't locked in stone, other than meet the NAUI requirements. So it's a lot of fun. We know them, they know us. Now, one thing we do try to do is bring in some outside instructors, because we don't want just little CSU and B clones running around. But we work with the staff from the diving safety office at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and we have some folks who come in from some other organizations in the area, either as staff members or at least as guests, so that they get exposure to different, teaching styles and philosophies. But, we get to pick the folks we want coming into the ITC, and like I said, we tell them, well, we're done when we're done, and no sooner than that. Some of them actually are now teaching here at CSU and B with me. Some of them are teaching up at UC Santa Cruz, and we've got some who've gone on to be assistant dive safety officers at various aquariums here on the West Coast. So it's fun to watch the program branch out.
Nice. I'm excited about what you do, and wishing at this point that I could go back to college, and I guess I could, couldn't I?
Yeah, I don't think you'd go back to take scuba, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. And what is also fun, and one of the things that we do is we have a lot of returning students here, some of whom are vets. And my background, probably my greatest expertise, if I have it, would be in working with folks with physical disabilities. I have a master's in adaptive physical education, and actually from my master's thesis project, I wrote a book, Scuba Instruction for Divers with Special Needs, and it was published by Best Publishing for a while. So we have a lot of vets who come in who have various either physical issues, sometimes it's PTSD, or we just have returning students who are a little bit older. They're interested in marine science. They take the scuba class. We get an interesting mix of age range, and it's fun to see them come back and get back in the water and get physically active again.
Sounds like an exciting program. If you haven't had a chance to read the NAUI Sources magazine, be sure and scope that out and see if you can find a copy of that. You can always check in with the folks at the NAUI office. Any dive professionals through NAUI obviously get sources. Be sure and check out the article. It's fascinating. And Frank, I want to say thanks for spending some time chatting with us about the program. Best of luck with it. It sounds very, very exciting.
Hey, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Always, always. If you enjoy the podcasts, be sure and subscribe on iTunes and Google Play. And if you are not a diver, or you maybe like to become a little bit more than a basic diver, be sure and check out classes at your local NAUI dive shop, or go online at NAUI, NAUI.org. And that's this episode of NAUI's Dive Team Report. I'm Greg Martin. Thank you for listening. I'll see you underwater.